Today I'll talk about some of the options we can choose from for debugging C applications on Linux. I decided to make this video after someone asked how I integrated a debugger in my workflow, and sadly my answer was that I don't have any. It's not that I never tried to use one, I did in fact, but using debuggers, like at least back when I did it, felt like another chore rather than using a tool. But maybe I was wrong, and maybe today we have some better alternatives. Okay, so I'm a very simple man. I don't need that much from a debugger, so here are the things that I'm specifically looking for. First, I need breakpoints, and I need them to be conditional if I want to. I need to be able to step in and out of functions. I need to be able to set watch points. I need to be able to go to the next line without having to put like a lot of extra breakpoints in my code. And last, but most important of all, I need a simple, usable, stable user interface. I don't care if the debugger is embedded in an IDE or if it's an Curses applications, GTK, Qt, or whatever. All I want is a straightforward, stable, modern-ish looking UI that allows me to just worry about manipulating the flow of the program and getting some extra information about the values of the current stuff. There might be some people that really need the assembly information, that read information, catch points and whatnot, but I'm not one of those guys. The things that I mentioned are just good enough for me. When talking about debuggers on Linux, I have to be specific about this. Most of the quote-unquote debuggers are just front ends to GDB, which is almost like the default debugger for all Linux distributions. There's also TLDW, which is the LLVM debugger, but I couldn't find like a graphical user interface for it. You can see the list of the frontends that I tested on. I'll conduct a small test on all frontends to see which of them feel good enough. I have a programs that output some stuff to an X11 window, and I want to catch the close window event. In my case, that is SDL quit. So basically, all I need is a conditional breakpoint that should get triggered once the close window event is sent to the program. I think that's easy enough. Now again, this isn't a very complicated test, but I'm currently just trying to figure out which frontends have a decent enough user experience. GDB with the -DUI option is a small enhancement to the regular command line interface. I've seen some pictures online of the types of customizations that you can do to visualize the data, and it actually looks great, but at the end of the day, you do the interfacing through the written commands for the debugger, which is actually not the best in my opinion at least. So the default options with GDB TUI, it's basically just like the command line interface thing, but it's also going to output the source code of the program that you're debugging at the top of the screen, as you can see now. Now again, you have to remember that this is just like a terminal application, but it doesn't even use end curses. I don't know, it's kind of weird. I've never really used one of these, but regardless of that, the thing that I want to do basically is be able to set a conditional breakpoint like I mentioned. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to use the break command for GDB, set the name of the file, semicolon, and then the number of the line that I want to put it at, right? So in that switch statement that I'm, hinting at with the pointer, then I'm gonna set it. But as you can see from the get-go, the breakpoint is not even at the correct line. It's at 878 instead of 918. I don't know why. I'm gonna try to run the program. Maybe I can set it after you hit the breakpoint. I'm gonna try to continue. You can see the red screen. That means that my application is running. But as soon as that happens, I am not able to pass any commands to the program anymore for some reason. Like if I try to set the breakpoint again, it's actually just gonna break the output of the application one more time. If I actually pass Ctrl L, which is supposed to realign the output or something, it doesn't do anything. If I try to continue, it's also not gonna do anything. I have to just, do Ctrl C to stop the process altogether. And yeah, that's as far as I was able to get. And I might be doing something completely wrong, but I don't really have like a lot of time to research all of this. You can see that that's where my breakpoint is, but yeah, I couldn't get that breakpoint to work on GDB for this particular setup. I wasn't surprised that Emacs offers some kind of interface for debugging. I mean, it's Emacs after all. So Emacs has a built-in GDB command. Now if you execute it, this is going to give you a buffer that works the same as if you were using the command line interface through the terminal. But if you trigger GDB many windows, this is going to give you a whole different layout. Now here, if you go through your code and put whatever breakpoint that you want to set, like me, with GUD break, then you're going to be able to see the breakpoint at the left fringe of the screen. And now I'm going to set the condition, but I need to do this through the command line interface. Now, the syntax is condition, the number of the breakpoint, and whatever evaluation that I want to set for that breakpoint. And I think that's about it. After that, I'm just going to run the project, and you're going to see like a red screen. That means that my application is running. I'm going to go back to Emacs to make sure that, it's not freeze or anything or frozen. Then I'm going to set the close window event, and it's going to send me back to the the switch statement that I placed. And if I step through the code, it's going to send me to the correct case statement, which is _quit. Yeah, I'm just going to step through the code and whatever else logic that I want. I should just get out of that while loop and terminate the application essentially. And this is how it will work with Emacs. Now, if you don't like this layout configuration, one of the cool things about this is that you can rearrange however you want these windows to appear in your session, and then you can save it to a file, and you can load it back with a command called gdb load window configuration, and then it's gonna set it exactly as you had it in your working session. Now if you have like a very specific layout that you like, you can get it back with this. Now the thing with Emacs in this regard is that the fact that you have to interface with GDB through the command line is not something that I really like, because you still have to remember a lot of syntax and stuff that I really don't want to focus on my debugging sessions. So, but if you wanted to do it through Emacs, this would be a way to do it. Geany is a very simple editor, but if its debugger plugin works, it can be perfect for the job. Okay, so using the debugger within Geany is pretty straightforward. All you have to do is, on the target option, select the folder and use the exe that you generated for your application. Then just like with Emacs, I'm gonna go and set the breakpoint at the line that I want. And within the interface as well, you can set the condition pretty conveniently instead of using the interface like within Emacs. Now I'm gonna just start the project. You can see the red screen, that means that it's working. Going back to Geany, making sure that nothing's frozen. I'm gonna send the close window event, but this is the part where I'm actually gonna hit a problem within Geany. It doesn't have that many options, and one of the things that I always look for in the debuggers is to be able to execute the next line. Maybe in the debug terminal, I was trying to see if there was an option to just use the next command or GDB command, but nope, it doesn't really work that way. So what I'm gonna do next is just basically use the command step into. Maybe that'll work fine. But if I do it long enough, then it's just gonna tell me that it cannot find the boundaries of the function. I don't know why. So, and if I step out, it's just gonna terminate the execution of the program, which is, what to be expected. If I run it again, I'm gonna try to step over it. So maybe that'll help. But just like with step into, if I do it long enough, then for some reason it fails to, step through the code for some reason. I don't exactly know why this is happening, but that's as far as I was able to get with Geany. I mean, to be fair, if you have like a more simplistic approach to debugging than me, this might be the tool for you. Codeblocks was my trustworthy IDE while going to college. Now, I imagine that it's just going to be even better than it used to be. For some reason, it looks even worse than it used to, like 10 years ago. I don't know what happened. But anyways, maybe the debugger is better. So all I'm trying to figure out right now is see if I can actually give it the binary so that the debugger can start doing its job. But I wasn't able to do any of that. So I'm gonna open, the source code. I'm actually gonna try to set the breakpoint. Maybe if I set the breakpoints and I try to execute the debugger, it's gonna work. and maybe even see if the the process for editing breakpoints and all of that is actually easy to do. And to be fair, it is easy to do. So maybe if you create a project, then everything's gonna be fine. But for me, the fact that I cannot use the debugger on its own, it's kind of a pain because I don't like dealing with whatever logic the IDEs put in their project management stuff. Yeah, that's as far as I was able to get with Codeblocks. Codelite is another IDE, and to be fair, I've already had some experience using this one, but for now I'm just gonna focus on the debugger. Out of all the debuggers in the list, I will say that Codelite is among the best, simply because its UI is very straightforward. I didn't have it crash on me any single time, so that's a plus. The process for setting up your breakpoints is also pretty straightforward. You just, click the fringe, as you will expect. You can edit it and set your conditions as wanted. So yeah, other than that, I didn't have any problem as opposed to Codeblocks that I couldn't even get the debugger to run without having like a proper project. So that's also really good in my view. Now you can also select whatever debugger you want, GDB or TLDW, and then you also need to set the executable in the working directory. Now one thing that I don't like, and something that I don't notice right away, is that some debuggers like to put like a breakpoint on main, but I don't notice that because it's like an invisible breakpoint for some reason. So you can see that my application is not running. After I realize that, I need to press the green arrow in order to see my program in its execution. And there's my red screen. Now I'm gonna send the close command, and yeah, it's just gonna step through the code. Now I was so confident that I just wanted to use either step in or use the next function, and yeah, it didn't give me any problems whatsoever. So at least for this small test, I will say that Codelite nailed it. I didn't have any experience with QtCreator prior to running these tests, and I was surprised at how relatively easy it was to set up the debugger for my use case. So despite having no experience with QtCreator, I will say for sure that it's also one of the best options among the list, simply because it's so simple and it's pretty stable, at least for the small test that I was able to run. Now, the debugging session, it's as simple as going to the debug menu, start debugging, and start and debug external application. From there, you just have to follow the menus, load your executable in your working directory, that'll be it. Now it's gonna start the program right away, so you can just close it. It's not gonna add unless you select the checkbox the break at main, as opposed to how Codelite does it, because I didn't see any option in Codelite. But again, this is actually pretty good. Now, one of the good things about QtCreator is that the breakpoints can be edited from the fringe as well. You can just right-click it, and then you're gonna be able to edit whatever you want in your breakpoint, whether if it's conditional, temporary, or whatever. So again, definitely check it out, even if it's just for the debugger or even for the full-blown IDE experience. I will say that QtCreator is pretty solid. So do check it out if you feel like you need a debugger in your life. So without getting too deep into the details, I was not able to get it working at first because for whatever reason, but I did end up doing some digging and found out that there was a dependency that was missing for Kdevelop to work with GDB, and now I don't know why, but that's just the case. Okay, so Kdevelop in itself, it's in a weird spot for me. Like, not only setting up the runner for the debugger thing was kinda annoying, also that dependency that I mentioned before is kinda annoying, but the whole debugging experience, it's kind of weird. Even after you go through the windows and set up your executable and whatnot, you have to, I think, first run the application, and after that you can set up your first breakpoint, and after that you can actually see the breakpoints. I don't know. It definitely was not a pleasant experience, and I was expecting something else. I could have easily been doing something completely wrong, but again, given that I already found 2 other IDEs that gave me like a decent enough experience, I will at least expect Kdevelop to bring me something to that level. But no. So even though it also looks pretty nice and it has like a consistent UI, the whole process of debugging within Kdevelop was just a disaster in my opinion. Oh dear. DDD. So DDD, or Data Display Debugger, it's a pretty old application, and let me just show you. Okay, so here it is. Now, without saying much, I think you can just tell right away that it's a pretty old program. Now, I don't care if it looks like this, as long as it works fine, but like right from the get-go, you can tell that I'm not even using it properly. I'm like, why is there a filter box up there and a program bugs down? Like, I don't know. It was so weird to use this thing at first. I mean, once you, I guess, get around the clunkiness, it does work. But doing something as simple as to say, I want to change the font on this thing, because it does have an option, and to its credit, it at least has an option. Like the other Qt applications didn't even have that thing where I could increase the font size. I will have to do it directly from like the generic Qt scaling thing, I believe. I don't even know, and I didn't want to spend time doing that. But using the menus in this thing was kind of a pain, to be completely honest about it. Other than that, I will say that it does work. I mean, it's not broken or anything like that. It's just that, yeah, I will say that most of the things on this program are a product of time more than anything, and the fact that no one has, put the time and effort to change all of these things, because it might be even the best debugger out there, and I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know if it would be the best even if it had like a better UI to work with, but it's not intuitive to say the least. Now, the setting up the breakpoints, it kind of works. Yeah, I think it's kind of laggy. Sometimes you can see the breakpoint and they appear out of nowhere for some reason, and then I forgot to set the working directory, but it didn't ask for it when I tried to load the binary, so I didn't think about it until I saw that it gave me a segmentation fault because I didn't load the file for one of the shaders correctly. Yeah, so a whole experience, again, pretty dated piece of software, but one that sort of works. If you have the time in it and you like it, you actually can integrate it into your workflow. But I will say for sure that you can use something else out of the list. You can think of Kdbg as a standalone debugger from Kdevelop, which is actually just what I wanted. This was a really pleasant surprise for me because, given that it's a standalone application, not a full-blown IDE or an editor as well, the fact that I can just load the debugger and start doing my work, it's amazing. Like, I just have to open it, give it the path to the executable, and bam, it's just gonna work. Adding breakpoints is easy. Adding the conditional stuff to those breakpoints is also pretty easy and straightforward. Uh, it doesn't add any extra things if I don't want it to add any extra things, which is also pretty cool. So again, this is gonna be one of the best picks for me, simply because it's a standalone thing, and I don't have to worry about, configuring workspaces and making sure that the project is fully loaded and whatever it is that other IDEs like to do with their thing. Now, last but not least, we have SeerGDB. This was also one of the best out of the bunch, again, because of its simplicity. As soon as you open the program, you're going to be greeted with a window to select your binary and the working directory, and you're good to go. Now, after that, the project is going to run, so you're going to have to close it and set up your breakpoints. The only thing that I didn't like about this one is that the addition of breakpoints is not as straightforward. Like, you have to set the breakpoint manually, because if you set it from the fringe, that's just gonna be like a regular breakpoint, and there's no way for editing breakpoints. So that's kind of a bummer. Now, that's maybe something that they can improve in their next iterations, or maybe they just don't care about that, and I'm the only one. That's also fine, of course. There were also some other stuff that I didn't understand why was happening. Like, at the end of the execution of the program, it was telling me that a gleave function or something, or a shared library, I don't even know, had a problem. Uh, but it wasn't anything too major. Like, it was at the end of the execution. I could live with it. But again, I don't know why it was happening. But like I said, the debugging session works okay, and maybe the things that I've mentioned, they will fix it in the upcoming releases, because as far as I could tell from the GitHub page, they are actively working on this thing, and it looks pretty solid from what I was able to work on for this test. So my top picks for sure will be number one, Kdbg, then QtCreator, Codelite, and then SeerGDB. The other ones were just not um, good enough for me. Either there was something missing, or the whole user experience was broken altogether. Like, that was just my experience. And again, it is possible that I was just trying to do something correctly, but at least the thing that I was trying to do, there is some software that is willing to take my stupidity and allow me to do the work that I want to do. Okay, so those four I will definitely suggest you to take a look at. I'll be cycling through them on a daily basis probably, just to see which feels better out of the four of them. Or maybe I'll just run like a more extensive suite of tests for debugging sessions and see, which of them I like the most. But yeah, other than that, I do appreciate for taking the time to watch my video, and you have a good day.